I've spent 90% of my life in dissociation, and that was due to PTSD. It was due to complex trauma. It was due to so much unprocessed stuff that I really was needing to process. And it wasn't until I found somatics that I was able to ground myself, that I was able to have the beautiful tools to actually feel alive in my body. And I want to share my story with you. And I want to tell you that feeling alive doesn't mean that I'm calm all the time. It doesn't mean that I don't get triggered. It just means that I move through these things much more consciously. So I actually came to somatics through business, which is very interesting because back then, my thought on trauma, I was always fascinated with trauma, by the way. My thought on trauma was that it's a repetitive event. So let's say you went through a car accident and then you're driving and you get triggered, which is true. Like that's for sure a thing, which by the way, I went through 2 car accidents and I definitely get triggered in the car when someone else is driving because that's what happened in the car accidents. But it's not necessarily the definition of trauma. And I now understand that. And I learned that through my first business. So what happened was I had a business in plant-based nutrition. I'm not going to tell you. Well, I actually am going to tell you. It is on YouTube. It's a little bit embarrassing when I look back on those videos. But I wanted to link one of them that was actually about my PTSD that was really, really powerful. So now you will have my channel with my workouts and my nutrition, and you can see the old Marina. It's interesting. It's a little bit embarrassing, but it's still cute. And I had this beautiful vision for my business. I was very excited for what I was creating, and it felt so stuck. Like I just felt so unbelievably stuck. And I couldn't figure out why. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing all the marketing things. I'm thinking, I'm analyzing, I'm learning. I mean, what the hell else can I do, you know? And it's really interesting because in my mind, I could only be having this challenge or this trigger or any trauma coming up if I would have had a business before and it didn't work. But that wasn't the case. This was my first business ever. And I hired a coach who told me that my business was a trauma response. I had no freaking clue what that meant. She told me that I need to start living in my body more versus my head. And I had no idea, but I was like, this feels true, which is really cool to just like have a knowing, you know, like, yeah, this feels true. So I I remember going to therapist after therapist and being like, is there such a thing as like therapy in the body? Like, is that a thing? And finally someone said, do you mean like somatic experiencing? And I was like, sure. No idea. No clue. Clueless Marina. And that's how I found somatic experiencing. And I actually ended up finding an SE therapist that I worked with for 3 years that completely changed my life. I processed so much survival energy, not from my head, but from my body. It was really, really hard. Like one of the hardest things I've ever done, truly, besides getting divorced. Truly. Besides getting divorced and besides going to the police and reporting my first boyfriend for sexual assault. So then you go. And what it really taught me those 3 years is actually how to self-regulate. So it taught me how to get from a state where I'm very, very triggered and I'm not present and I feel really unsafe in my body because past trauma is coming up. I'm having a trauma response, which, by the way, has nothing to do with the event itself, but more with the sensations and emotions coming up in my body. Like, for example, if I'm really, let's just pretend, if I'm very sensitive to abandonment and rejection, and I get rejected in my business, which was happening, right? Clients would say, no, I don't want to work with you. I thought about it. I don't want to. I would be shut down for days. I would literally be in my bed for days. And I was like, what the hell is going on? It doesn't have to do with business. It has to do with very early childhood complex PTSD abandonment. So I learned through somatics how to self-regulate. And that means that I learned practices that could help me bring my nervous system from a state of fight or flight or freeze or fawn and into presence. And then, so that was the first step. And I kind of want to share this as like, this was my journey. Maybe this is also your journey, and the step-by-step evolving, which is kind of evolve forever. Like, it's obviously not done. But the first step was really learning how to bring myself from total shutdown. I can't function. I'm completely dissociated. My body feels numb. I'm not present, and into presence in my body. And that brought so much aliveness to my life. And I was, again, dissociated 90% of the time because I had so much trauma, and the trauma lived in there. And every time it would touch into it, it would just be too much. So my body was so smart to protect me and keep me dissociated so that I wouldn't access all of this pain. And once I started to get into my body, to feel connected to my body, and to learn how to self-regulate, then I started to learn to feel. Now, here's like the really tricky part for all of us who have CPTSD. So, not all, but so many of us, part of our trauma is around emotions. So we have a particular emotion that we were shamed for, ridiculed for. Maybe we were abandoned when we felt this emotion. Our caregivers just like didn't know how to handle it. They either made fun of us, or they were just like silent treatment, or like try to fix it, right? And so we learned that maybe anger or sadness or fear is bad, and really bad things happen when that emotion shows up. And at the same time, in order to process trauma, we have to feel that emotion. There's no other way. And so when I would hear like, feel it to heal it, I'm like, oh, so cool. What the hell? Like, I can't. Like, I can't. It's so overwhelming. So the next step for me was really learning how to feel safely. And there are still so many moments when sadness, for me, it's sadness and disappointment. Those are the two. When those come up, I just really can struggle. You know, I feel like I can't be present. It's really overwhelming. So there's a lot of learning there, you know, to feel your emotions and to feel that it's safe. And it's not something you can do in like a day and be done. But yeah, it's really a process. So that was kind of the next step. Step number 3 was all about relationships. And it's still, I think it's the stage that I'm really in, which is expressing my needs, receiving support, and, you know, asking for what I need in terms of support, and co-regulation with someone else. Even though co-regulation is actually the best way to regulate your nervous system, of course, self-regulation is super important too, of course. But co-regulation, I say it's the best because it is the first way that we learn to regulate, or are supposed to. Many of us with CPTSD, we do not. Our caregivers, you know, when you think about a baby crying and the caregivers showing up very calm and stable and validating, you know, I know, like, oh, you're sad, right? It might not be verbal with a baby, but it's like, oh, you're sad, and kind of like mirroring and then soothing the baby. And so it's the message that that baby receives is like, it's okay to cry, and then I can be soothed, and then I can also learn to do it for myself later on. Now, many of us did not have that, not as babies, not as toddlers, not as teenagers. And we were pretty much left to suffer alone, to struggle alone, to be invisible in our pain. So, of course, we have this expectation that when we express our needs, when we ask for support, no one shows up, and it's even worse. It's better to just like do it alone, right? Or that's one option. That's the more avoidant spectrum. The more anxious side of things is I need people. Like, I need them. They need to show up for me. I can't regulate myself. Like, I'm so dependent. Yeah, and I have both. It's a very fun combination over here. So the next thing I really had to learn is to ask for support. And interestingly, the way that I learned this is by stopping to self-abandon, because so much of what I thought was abandonment by someone else, and that pain, like the actual physical, visceral pain that I felt when I was feeling abandoned, was actually self-abandonment. And let me explain why. Adults cannot be abandoned. This is one of my mentors, Terry Real, always says. Adults cannot be abandoned. We can only be left. So think about that. A child can be abandoned because abandonment literally means like there's a danger in someone leaving you. And if someone leaves you, like you could die as a child, right? I mean, you can't function on your own as a child. You can't fend for yourself. As an adult, that is not the case most of the time. Of course, there's very extreme examples that it is the case for whatever reason, but I'm talking about normal everyday life. And so we can be left, it's true, but if we feel abandoned, we're very likely self-abandoning. And that means we're not communicating our needs. We're not communicating our desires. We're not self-validating. We're not saying like, yeah, I want that thing and I deserve to want it. And it's okay that I want my friend to hold my hand when I'm crying. And it's okay to, make plans and then cancel them. It's okay to make a mistake, whatever it is. And so we end up self-abandoning. And that's really like my stage of learning at the moment. And there's so much I've learned and there's so much I've embodied and there's so much that I'm still learning about this. And not just about this, but how to live it in everyday life, like how to show up for myself, how to ask for support and receive it, how to ask for my needs. And all of that is beautiful and it's co-regulating, and how to be in a conscious relationship where I give and receive in this like beautiful flow. So that's a little bit of my story. There's of course so much more. There's so much history, and I feel like I didn't really share a lot of the traumas that have created this, which is interesting, but I'm going to link again the video in which I do for my other channel. If you want plant-based recipes, they're over there. But really what I teach today is all about somatics. It's all about trauma healing, emotional healing, relational healing, because we can heal so deeply in relationships. And we also get wounded in relationships, right? And those of us with complex PTSD, childhood PTSD, we likely got so wounded in relationships. And now it's this like oxymoron, because we can heal so deeply with another human, but we can also recreate the same pain. So I'm going to be talking about all these beautiful things on this channel every week. I'm so excited. Please join me on this adventure. Please subscribe. Please like this video. And let me know a little bit about you, at least where you're coming from in the world. But of course, if you want to share more, I would love that. I would love to meet you and get to know you. Anything that you want to share in the comments. I'm so happy that you're here. I want you to know that you can heal. I want you to know that, yes, it's true, with complex trauma, we have a lot of triggers and we have challenges, but at the same time, there's just so much beauty that we have access to. And from my experience, complex trauma leads us to access so much more compassion, empathy, aliveness, and love. And really the ability to live with an open heart to life, which is such a gift. So this is what I'll be talking about. Thank you for being here. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you very soon.